I encountered him at the gym and he immediately caught my attention. His tall, muscular, and handsome physique exuded confidence, which I found alluring. While I never imagined being unfaithful to my husband, there was something about him that captivated me. We engaged in conversation and gradually progressed to flirting. We exchanged phone numbers and began texting. At first, our messages were harmless, but they eventually grew more suggestive. Despite knowing that my actions were unethical, I couldn't resist his allure. He possessed qualities that my husband lacked, such as excitement, passion, and spontaneity. We began to rendezvous covertly, either in hotels or other clandestine locations. Every moment spent together was all-consuming, with nothing else seeming to matter. It was just us, lost in the moment. But one day, my husband discovered the truth. I returned home late one night, anticipating him to be asleep. Instead, I found my husband waiting for me in the living room. His expression conveyed hurt, anger, and betrayal. He revealed that he knew everything about the other man, including the texts and meetings. I attempted to explain myself, apologizing for my mistake, but he refused to listen. According to him, I had broken his trust and destroyed our marriage. The following weeks were a blur, with minimal conversation between my husband and me, primarily limited to discussions about the divorce proceedings. My husband had enlisted a lawyer to ensure that I didn't receive more than the bare minimum. I pleaded with him to forgive me and tried to mend our relationship, but he refused, stating that he had been hurt too deeply and couldn't bear to look at me without feeling betrayed. As the divorce process drew to a close, I was overcome with remorse. I had carelessly discarded something that had taken years to establish, something that was genuinely valuable. For what? A fleeting moment of passion with a stranger. I was willing to do anything to salvage my marriage, so I resorted to blackmail. I devised a plan to set him up with someone else and caught myself up in it. It took me along. Although it's been a long time since the incident, I searched for the most attractive women in our area online. I sifted through countless profiles until I stumbled upon a beautiful woman named Sarah. Sarah possessed long blonde hair, striking blue eyes, and a captivating smile. I was confident that Jack would be drawn to her, so I arranged a rendezvous between the two of them. I contacted Sarah and shared the situation, and she agreed to meet Jack and assist me for a fee. On the day of the meeting, I was anxious and uncertain of what to anticipate. I had never orchestrated anything of this nature before. However, as soon as Jack laid eyes on Sarah, his expression lit up, and he was unable to take his gaze away from her. The scheme was unfolding perfectly, and I was thrilled with the outcome. In anticipation of her sleeping with my husband, I had paid her upfront, ensuring his loyalty to me. To ensure a seamless execution, I even went the extra mile and added a sleep-inducing substance to his drink. Leaving them to their own devices, I eagerly awaited the results. Hours later, I returned home, eager to see the fruits of my labor. As expected, I arrived to find my husband fast asleep with the woman I had arranged for him, his arm draped over her. Without wasting a moment, I pulled out my phone and began snapping away, capturing every incriminating detail. After collecting Sarah, I saved the photos to my cloud and forwarded them to my husband. Knowing his concern for his reputation, I was certain he wouldn't dare to jeopardize it by leaving me. With this evidence, I had the upper hand in our relationship. Upon receiving the photos, my husband immediately texted me, demanding to know what I had done. But my response was just the silent evidence before him, and there was nothing he could do about it. With no reply from him, I knew that I had emerged victorious. I now had the freedom to sleep with whomever I pleased, and he was powerless to stop me. Any notion of divorce was out of the question. as he would be forced to relinquish half of his assets, which he was unwilling to do. While he may no longer love me, he still held his pride and adored his wife. For my husband, his pride was paramount, and that was all that mattered to him. As for me, I felt incredible after the events of the previous night. Finally, I could unleash my wild side without any apprehension. In fact, I enjoyed it so much that I could easily become accustomed to this lifestyle. However, I wasn't thrilled about the prospect of returning to San Francisco anytime soon. I'd much rather reside by the beach, taking in the serene ocean view, than return to a dreary small town and face the same old struggles. My life in this place was absolutely flawless, and I envisaged it staying that way for a long time. I was not the kind of person who was easily stressed out, so I had fewer and fewer moments of worry as time went by. When you're single, there are a plethora of things to ponder, even the minutest of details. Constantly grappling with problems can be exhausting, and I was grateful to have resolved this issue entirely. I was thrilled and exhilarated at the prospect of what lay ahead, with no idea of what lay ahead, but the certainty of having a great time. I embarked on my next adventure. My first step was to leave the country for a while and explore Europe. I had heard plenty about the men there, and I was eager to experience it firsthand. I traveled through several countries, relishing each city I visited. I thoroughly enjoyed the freedom of traveling and escaping the pressure of always having to look flawless. One day while in London, I stumbled upon a fascinating place. I discovered a place where the buildings were unlike anything I had seen in the U.S., more vibrant and colorful. I stayed there for an extended period, exploring the city's attractions and immersing myself in the nightlife. Naturally, there were men, and I made it my mission to indulge in plenty of them. It felt like a personal vendetta against my husband, even though I was well aware that he would never find out. I was angry with him for attempting to divorce me, and this was my way of getting back at him. Eventually, I returned to the U.S. and settled down. Living alone, I found myself free from the stress and responsibilities that I once believed were necessary, and I was content. I relished the freedom of being independent and began contemplating my own career path. Finally, being free from my husband was liberating, and I had been mulling over an idea for a few years. Having spent a considerable amount of time in the fashion industry, I possessed a natural knack for bringing things together. So when an opportunity presented itself for me to become a model, I eagerly seized it. I dedicated countless weeks and months to meticulously planning my portfolio, with the intention of impressing the world upon my arrival. The vision was flawless in my mind, leaving no room for error. However, in the midst of my frenzied efforts to perfect my fashion design portfolio, my husband's call interrupted my concentration. Upon glancing at my phone screen, I noticed his name. "Hey, what's up?" I responded, hoping that it wasn't a matter of great urgency. It was then that he uttered the words, "I know what you've been doing." My husband's voice was coldly as he spoke, causing my heart to accelerate with unease. "What are you talking about?" I inquired apprehensively. "I'm aware of your campaign," he answered. "You're attempting to launch your own fashion brand, aren't you?" I hesitated momentarily, pondering how he had discovered my plans. "Yes," I confessed. "I'm going to take legal action," he declared. "You can't do this without my consent," I protested. "But it's my aspiration. I just want to follow my passion." "I don't care," he responded icily. "I won't permit you to jeopardize our finances with your unrealistic ambition." Tears welled up in my eyes as I ended the call. Although my husband was controlling, I never expected him to be so unsupportive. I had always envisioned establishing my own fashion brand, and I had finally mustered the courage to put my plans into action. Now, it felt as if my aspirations were being thwarted before they had a chance to come to fruition. Despite my efforts to concentrate on my work, my mind remained preoccupied with my husband's warning of legal repercussions. I couldn't fathom why he would act in such a manner. Throughout our relationship, I had always been supportive of his career, yet he never seemed to reciprocate the same level of encouragement towards my designs. A sense of bitterness towards him began to fester within me. While I understood his concern about our finances, I sensed that he was using this as an opportunity to retaliate against me for something I had done. I had hoped he would leave me be, but it was clear that he had other plans. It appeared that he wasn't finished with me just yet. I recognized that I needed to speak with him face to face, or else this situation would never be resolved. Thus, I made the decision to approach him in person. My heart thumped in my chest as I entered the lobby of my husband's workplace. Countless thoughts raced through my head, and the sound of my heels tapping against the marble floor reverberated through the silent space. Although I had arrived to confront him concerning his accusations, I had no clue what to anticipate. Approaching the elevators, I pushed the button and waited fretfully for the doors to slide open. When they did, I entered and inhaled deeply, attempting to soothe my nerves. This was not the way I had intended to spend my day. My schedule involved meeting with a potential investor for my fashion brand, not confronting my husband regarding his legal threats. Upon reaching the highest floor, I exited the elevator and traversed towards my husband's office. The door was ajar, and I could observe him seated at his desk, typing away on his computer. As I entered, he glanced up, his expression inscrutable. "Hello, honey," he greeted. He gestured for me to occupy the seat opposite his desk. I complied, feeling increasingly apprehensive. "What's happening?" I inquired, endeavoring to maintain a composed tone. My husband reclined in his chair, regarding me with an icy stare. "Rebecca, I'm aware of your actions," he stated. My heart thudded erratically. "What are you referring to?" I queried. "I know you gave me a sleeping pill," he declared, his voice laced with a menacing tone. "As a matter of fact, I've been aware for some time now. I've been anticipating your confession," he continued. My thoughts were in disarray. How could he have discovered my actions? I had taken great care to add minuscule amounts that wouldn't affect the flavor in any way. "I'm not sure what you're referring to," I responded, feigning ignorance. "Don't deceive me, Rebecca," he retorted, his voice resolute. "I had the tea tested. There were traces of sleeping pills present. Additionally, I spoke with the woman you introduced to me, and she admitted everything." A lump materialized in my throat, and I swallowed laboriously. I just needed some leverage," I stammered. My husband leaned closer, his gaze penetrating. "Do you comprehend how hazardous that was?" he interrogated. "What if I had an adverse reaction? What if something had occurred to me while I was unconscious? You could have caused my death, Rebecca." Tears flowed down my cheeks uncontrollably. It was difficult to believe that this was transpiring. In a remorseful tone, I admitted to my husband how foolish and self-centered I had been. I apologized, whispering that I never intended to cause him any pain. His facial expression softened somewhat as he replied that he understood my intentions, but the damage had already been done. Feeling defeated, I nodded in agreement. Then my husband leaned back, and I heard the sound of the door opening behind me. As I turned around, I noticed 2 policemen standing there. As they walked towards me, I inquired about the situation. The officer informed me that I was being arrested for attempted murder and proceeded to handcuff me. My mind was in a state of shock, and as I turned to look at my husband, I saw a wicked smile on his face. He spoke with a malicious tone, reminding me that I shouldn't have crossed him. The authorities took me away, and at that moment, I realized that I had lost to him. The court proceedings were a blur, and I was found guilty almost immediately, leading to my imprisonment. As I sat inside my cell, waiting for my sentence to be served, a wave of panic washed over me. Tears streamed down my cheeks once again, but this time, I allowed them to fall freely as I attempted to comprehend everything that had happened. Imprisonment was an unfamiliar territory, and I didn't know what to anticipate. The walls around me were inescapable, and it felt like I was trapped. The most painful aspect of this entire ordeal was the realization that my husband was doing fine. He hadn't reached out to me, which only added to my agony. The realization that my husband was enjoying his life outside the prison walls, despite the fact that he had ruined mine, was a painful thought. I acknowledged that I was also responsible for my current predicament, and there was no point in dwelling on it. It was a harsh reality, and there was very little I could do to change it at this point.